So we can think about this in an implementation timeline. I'm going to move my face because I'm covering up a little bit of it. So when we're thinking about our OKR timeline, we really want to start thinking about almost the whole quarter before we want to roll out. So we would want to really start talking about OKRs a lot in Q1 before we get into that Q2 for that launch. Now, we don't have to go all the way back to Jan 1. Hey, everybody, this is what we're doing. But we want to start thinking around 2 months prior, doing a little bit more of that announcement around how are we going to do OKRs. We're going to start doing some education around OKRs. When we get into that month before ready to launch, so this would be around that March, we'd be looking at rolling out some of the top-level OKRs for the quarter, so making sure we have goals at the company level, doing a lot of OKR training for our individual teams, aligning and finalizing our OKRs, and then making sure that we are all launched and have action plans for how to hit it. This is all before we actually get into the OKR cycle, so for those 2 months ahead of time, it's where we're going to do a lot of that education work, a lot of that hype work about getting people excited about this process, and really just making sure that everyone is aligned towards why are we doing this, how are we doing this. So if we break this all down into different pieces and maybe get a little bit further, let's start at the absolute beginning of what this timeline would look like for you. And that really means just that kickoff point. So we're about 2 months out. So that absolute first day, we're going to tell all of our teams about our OKRs. And so for this, we're really going to want to focus on making sure that we have that executive sponsor really locked into place to be able to announce that we're doing this to the rest of the organization. So we want someone who's going to be able to come in with that gravitas, be able to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We want to have this announced at an all-hands meeting, no matter what type of pilot or if this is the full implementation that you're doing. And the reason is that we don't want this to be something that is siloed away and, oh, that's the executive team thing, I don't need to worry about that, or, oh, that's just that sales team thing, we don't need to worry about that. Especially if we're planning on having that full org rollout at any time, we want this to be something that we talk about to everyone all of the time. This is the company North Star. We're doing this to make big changes in our business. We're going to have a lot of goals that are going to help us reach XYZ, whether that's your next funding round, an IPO, growing, profitability, whatever you're looking for. Why are we doing this? Who's doing this? We're going to want to make that announcement to everybody. So we want to make sure that this is something that we really are pretty critical around putting in front of the entire team and making sure that everyone understands that why behind it. If we look forward to the next month, we're really in more of a training mode. So this is where we start really thinking about, hey, who are my stakeholders? Who are my champions? Who are the people that are going to be working on this process with me? And we're going to talk a lot about strategy, and we're going to talk about a lot about the company OKRs. So this is where we're going to really start to think about, what are the types of goals that we're going to be setting? Where do we need to make the biggest impact in our business? If we make a change, what is the big outcome that we would be able to have? Why are we going to do this? How are we going to do our updates? What tools do we need to bring into this process? We want to have all of this strategy conversation ahead of time as we're starting to then figure out how to craft our OKRs and manage our OKR cycle. So different folks are going to have different things that they're going to need to focus on here. But really, we're going to do a lot of that strategy work and then start working on that crafting of OKRs and understanding really how are we going to do this. When we get a little bit closer to the end of the quarter, we're about 2 weeks out from the OKR period that we're going to run this for. So 2 weeks out before Q2 in our example. This is where we want to make sure that we have some very solid goals published. So this is where our top level company OKRs should be finalized, should be locked in, and we should know what we're going to be working towards. At this point, especially as we're bringing in those lower level teams into this as well, and we want to have those multiple layers of OKRs, this is where we're going to start bringing them into the process and helping them work through how to write their goals. Now, when we're talking about helping teams out, we're really going to want to make sure that we're doing these as team workshops. So when we're thinking about our team workshops, that means not just, hey, I'm going to come in, tell you how to write a goal, go away, and then hope that when I come back, you've got great goals. It's going to be a little bit more of a live process where I want to have people coming back to me saying, hey, these are the goals that we have. Let's poke some holes in them. Let's make sure that they're up to our standards. Let's make sure that they're structured as OKRs. We get a lot of people that just come in with like a task list. That's not what we want. We want to have these goals. And so this is where you have that opportunity to refine those goals with your teams. We can also bring everyone together to do this. It doesn't have to be siloed team by team. And that also gives us an opportunity to review other teams' goals as well. So if I'm in the sales team and I see that the engineering team is working on building out a brand new product to go and sell, I want to be prepared to go and sell that product and be able to go and get that ready by the time it launches. So if they're looking to launch by the end of next month and looking to get X number of new users on it, well, my team needs to be prepared with battle cards, with all of the values for all of this, to be able to go out and be able to get those customers to put onto that product. This is where we can have that overlap to make sure that we really are going and getting the most from these goals. Once we hit the point where we've got all of our OKRs finalized, we launch into then our big OKR cycle. And this also has its own individual pieces depending on where we are in the OKR cycle. It's not just, hey, all right, cool, everyone go off and do your best. We want to have a little bit more guidelines than that as well. So in your first month of the OKR cycle, we've published our goals, teams are ready to go. We should be getting those updates that communicate the progress about these goals to everybody. If we're just saying, hey, go work on these goals and we're going to hope that everything's going well and I'll check in with you at the end of the quarter, we're doomed to fail. We want this to be something where we are active, we're living in our OKRs, we're talking about them all the time. If these are something that we consider important, if these are things that are really going to drive the organization and those teams, they're not something that should sit in a spreadsheet that we hope to hit. They should be something that we are using to guide the work from week to week for our organization in an effort to go off and hit those goals. This also gives us an opportunity to make some adjustments as we're getting into it the first couple weeks. Hey, these goals really don't really feel like they were crafted the right way. Oh, you know, we've been reaching out to this champion, but they're a little overburdened. Maybe we need to have someone else in there. This gives us the opportunity to make some changes to our OKR playbooks or to our OKRs if we need to early on, so that we're not spending a lot of time working towards a goal that really doesn't make sense or really isn't useful, or digging into a process that's bumming everybody out and sapping everyone's energy. We want to feel like this is something that's really working, which means being open to making those changes in that first month especially. In month 2, we're looking a lot more at sort of broader updates. When we're thinking about the end of month 1, we've given ourselves a pretty good chunk. It's 33% of the way through the quarter. That means we have a good sense of where we're going and how we've performed so far. So this is a good time for those department heads and the OKR program owner to put together a big progress report. How are we doing on our OKRs overall as an organization? Which teams are doing great? Which teams need some additional resources? So this is where we have that opportunity to put together a broader report to be able to deliver both to the executive team, to the board, and then also to our team that are working on this. Where do we have some opportunities? Where do we have some successes already? That means meeting with the teams. That means talking to teams directly to get feedback, both on their goals and on the process. And it also means not saying like, all right, cool, if we're doing well, everyone gets a thumbs up, we keep moving. If everyone's doing poorly, I start to go yell at people. That's not how this is supposed to work. When we're thinking about OKRs and talking about especially that first month, we want to be highlighting opportunities to do more, or opportunities to have more collaboration, or opportunities to put more resources into a goal that's critical. But we also want to highlight wins. Where are teams outperforming expectations? Where are teams being able to rally around their OKRs in a really significant way to be able to drive some progress? This is going to give us a lot more that we can go off of that can help us, especially as we hit that last piece of the quarter. Now, once we get into month 3, this is really where we start to figure out how we've done. And so, especially at the end of the quarter, our executive sponsor and our OKR program owner are going to present our results as an organization. Now, this definitely switches to the executive, because not only are they the one responsible ultimately for the success of the whole OKR program, but again, we want to make sure that this isn't something that's just being done sort of toiling at the team level. This is something that everyone really cares about and that the executive team is looking at and is using to make strategic decisions for the business. Now, we want to present all of this at an all-hands meeting, just like when we announced the initial OKR process. And we want to then use that not only to say, hey, this is what also went really great, this is what didn't go so great, but also for the teams, their time with these particular OKRs isn't over just yet. We want them to do a retrospective on it, because retrospectives are really critical for making sure that this isn't just sort of a rote process that we're going through, but something where we can learn and grow from quarter to quarter. And so in our retrospectives, we'll talk a little bit more about them at the end of this presentation. But in our retrospectives, we're really just going to be wanting to figure out what can we do better, where do we want to continue to double down efforts, what went really well, what can we celebrate. We want to make sure that we have specific guidelines that we can give to teams. We want to make sure that the teams not only do their retrospectives, but then share them out with the rest of the organization. If we learned that, hey, going from bi-weekly updates to weekly updates ended up giving us a ton more data and let us work a lot more efficiently, we want everyone to know that, not just that one team to be able to feel good about it. We want to take that knowledge and be able to share that out and make sure that everyone can feel good about, oh, this is actually something that could really work for us.